Failure and your next success? Be right back. I like the music behind that video. Anyway, hey, good morning and welcome to you, Dave. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Phil.
And for those of you who are not watching us in the morning, I hope it's not too late or it's not the next day. But if it is, thank you for being here. And if you're watching us on the replay, if you could go #replay and let us know where you're from. And that would be helpful and useful. We'd like to know who's here, who's watching us. And if you have some feedback for us, we'd appreciate that as well. In addition to that, if you could share this out to the YouTube community or your community and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So today we're going to talk about the concept of failure and your next success. And this was stimulated by Dave Watkins. So we're just going to talk about that concept. What made you think that we should talk about that today?
I see a lot of people, both in my practice and just in my community, that are a bit flummoxed by failure.
Flummoxed
by failure, which is alliterative, always a good thing. And I have been there myself, and I know how that can feel. Yet I see failure as one of the greatest contributors to any success I've had in my life. So I thought that would be an interesting thing to explore.
Well, we have somebody here who's also a genuine human being with a bit of a sense of humor and a bit sarky at times because he's from Massachusetts and they kind of like that. But in spite of that, he is a wonderful individual. He went from being a carpenter to an entrepreneur who provides fun and high value in the T-shirt business. And look at that. He says he's a master at failing. And he's very proud of it, and he's looking forward to this. So he's put no pressure on us.
Yeah. Suddenly the anxiety is flowing.
I know. We're going to fail, maybe. I don't know. But you know what? I don't have it in my banner this morning, but sometimes I have the one in there that I quite like. And it's what FAIL stands. FAIL as an acronym is actually pretty interesting. First attempt in learning. Because you don't know what you don't know, right? Mm-hmm. Until you do it. It's like your backdrop, that's a massive improvement from where you were in the early days of going live on the business Renovator. Because we got rid of the flowers. All of that painting is probably worth a lot of money and is very attractive. It was distracting for the viewership. Mm-hmm. Now, what we've noticed here is well, I'll make you a little bit bigger so people can see the difference. So here's an example of fail and what your next success is, because you didn't know what you didn't know until you put this up here. So I'm not throwing Dave under the bus, but this is a really good example of how fail, first attempt in learning, shows up for us. So watch this. See if I've got this right. So now we can actually read. It's Dave Watkins. He's Focused Growth Performance. There's his email address and website and his logo. But when I bring him down to, so I'm on the air, it's really hard for most of us to read that. Now, maybe healthier eyes can see it, but we didn't know that until we did it, right? So here we are.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Thanks for pointing that out.
Well, I wanted people to know that we're just two guys that are real, and we've had failures along the way. And this is insignificant, but it's significant in a small kind of weird way. But a really good example of the fail to success mindset.
It is a good example. And I used to be a scientist back in the old days. And science is all about failing. Because You have.
Sorry for laughing. I read this.
Oh, thank you so much, Ron.
There you go.
Yeah, I like Ron already.
I know, isn't he brilliant?
Yeah,
Throws me under the bus and picks you up. That's brilliant.
yeah, it's wonderful. But in science, you learn that every experiment is not just I try to fail. I learn. I start from a better place. That is fantastic. That's right. That's what I was getting at with experimentation in science. Is it's a given that you're not going to get the final result on the first try.
Usually.
But each experiment is a learning experience, and you would think I would have naturally applied that to my life in business, but I didn't. I wanted the businesses to be successful first time out.
Yeah, gotcha. So, was there somebody famous that comes to mind for you that's talked about quite often?
Oh, yeah, so many. Thomas Edison is one who, because of his Edisonian research, try again. Tom Brady was not seen to be a great quarterback. That's for you Canadians. That's American football. Tom Brady is now the greatest of all time, and but he sat on the bench for a few years. And coming out of college, I think he was drafted in the 6th round.
Yeah.
But there are many others. I'm sure you have many in mind.
Well, the first one you hit that one right out of the park. It's like we planned this.
Oh,
and the only planning,
of course, we didn't.
The only planning and preparation that goes into any of these on Wednesdays when you and I get to hang out for 30 minutes or so is that we're going to be here on Wednesday and start at the top of the hour. That's about the only planning we do. Mm-hmm. It's really a free fall conversation where we get to talk about the ideas that are represented by the title we have. We didn't spend any time other than you sent me a list of things that we could talk about. We picked one and said, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. So here we are talking about failure and your next success. I have not heard of this book. See what comes out of this? We get some great nuggets from the people that pop in here and share their wisdom and their ideas. Great book on the subject. Think Again. I've not read that one, but thank you for that, Ron. Really appreciate it. And a Hall of Fame baseball player fails 70% of the time. This is a really good example. His job is to hit the ball. If he gets a guy 30%, 300 average, he is happy. And he's on his way to be very famous. And actually probably highly well paid is what I'm trying to, well remunerated. That's the word I was thinking of. See, we didn't plan this. Yeah, that's totally true. So look at that. You don't even have to be 51% correct, only 30%. Mm-hmm. I think it's a consistency. What do you think? It's not failure really until you stop, give up, don't do it anymore. Then maybe you failed.
You know, an example of someone who failed is Willie Mays. So Willie Mays was hitless his first 20 some at bats. And he was ready to go back to the minors. He was crying. And he would have gone back if it were up to him. But his manager said, no, you have to stay here. I believe in you, which I think is very important. And you're going to start hitting. So he gave him that sense of a springboard to the future that he had lost and was ready to give up. And of course, Willie Mays became the great Willie Mays.
Isn't it interesting that there's a lot of parallels within the baseball world? There's another one who was apparently pretty good at baseball, but one of the things that got in his way was his lack of demonstrative enthusiasm. And that was Frank. That's a funny sound.
I am so sorry.
Do you have a big cat that's purring very loud on the mic?
Yeah, don't tell anybody. We're not allowed to have them. No, we're getting repairs on our building, and it's been quiet here the last few days. But of course, they would pick this hour.
Yeah. So sorry to get distracted by that. That's pretty funny. This is live. This is what happens in the live world of virtual communications. There was a fellow that raised himself up from failure to success by selling. I don't know if you know the story. Do you know the story, Frank Bechter?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was his enthusiasm that got in his way. He was a very good ball player, but he was told or taught or had a belief that it wasn't proper to be enthusiastic and excited about what he did. So that I'm not going to go into the whole story, but if you want to know how that story goes, go get the book. It's a short read. But he leveraged that knowledge and education that he gained from that experience to become a very wealthy, successful life insurance guy in his day. And so that's a good book. And the other one is Napoleon Hill talks about 3 feet from gold. Do you remember that guy's name that went and looked for gold and he went off the vein 3 feet, tried everything, lost everything, and was running out of money, so he sold his gear penny on the dollar to somebody who was maybe a pawnbroker. Pawnbroker didn't know anything about geology, and so he hired a geologist. When it went up to the play, the geologist went there and said, yeah, if you go 3 feet this way, you should be all right. One of the largest finds in that particular story. It's not Darwin. It's
anyway, Darby?
Darby, that's what it was, yeah. Mm-hmm. And he went into in insurance, and he used the 3 feet from gold motivation. So what he learned from that failure to his next success, he was hugely successful in his next career.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Does this sound too distracting, and should I leave?
No, because without you, we have no show.
I know you're capable.
Huh?
I know you're capable of doing it alone. I just don't want to be too distracting.
No. Let's put a poll to the audience. Do you think we should kick Dave out, or Dave should voluntarily leave because of that jackhammer that's happening in the background? Thumbs up, he stays. Oh, I feel like the royalty. Fail and success. Or thumbs down, he's got to go.
Yeah.
Because I have the power. I can punt him. Watch.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to punt you. Okay, so and if nobody thumbs up, sounds like Dave is building something special. Brilliant. So hang out with us, whoever you are, Facebook user. When you come on and join us on the StreamYard platform, it's really important, so that we know who you are, is to let StreamYard know who you are and give them permission. Oh, it's BAM. Hashtag BAM. Thank you, Eric. Now I know who you are. And I think you're right. I think Dave is building something special. So there, see, the noise went and you stayed and everything is good.
Mm-hmm.
So
just wait a minute.
And Ron says it sounds not bad.
Okay, great, Ron.
And we'll just carry on. We're talking about fail and success. Mm-hmm. And whatever that brings up for you. What else does that stir up for you in your life experience that you might feel like you want to tell us about?
I've had many failures, like most people, but I had one giant one, and that caused me to lose perspective.
What was
that? I had started a company with another person. And we had had a previous company that was very successful. We started to start another company, and we everything it should have told us it's time to get out, to end the business, but we didn't. We saw that as failure, to stop.
Mm.
But what was really failure was continuing. And so at the end of the day, we both lost a lot of money, and we felt like utter failures, and I was depressed, and it kept me from really seeing the potential opportunities for a while, which was very sad. Because if I had known what I know now, I would have learned from that, not taking it personally. I think what I did is I took the failure personally.
Mm.
But anyone in that business at that time failed. It was during the e-bubble that burst. And we had an e-business. And our business failed. So did a zillion others. but I took it personally, and that was something now I know I've learned from. It was tough, though.
I think what you just said there is one of the reasons why I like you.
What's that?
Just what you said is that you give a shit.
Yeah.
You didn't. That's not your language. That's my language. But that's how
I don't recall saying that.
No, I translated from American to Canadian.
Good.
Okay, good. I was creating this. So what you just talked about was this. This is one of my favorite things I've learned in the path that I've been on. And it's quink. And I quink things a lot. So at the end of this episode, Dave and I'll have a debriefing, and we'll quink this, knowing what I now know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it'll actually be knowing what we now know, but that doesn't spell quink very well. So it's for ease of the acronym, it's knowing what I know. Have you used that in any way, shape, or form that's you found to be beneficial? Quinking?
Yes.
In our show?
The way I've used it, I used it recently with a client. And the way we did it is I asked him to draw out. We built a scale on a piece of paper. One was up, positive things in his business, and the other was down, negative things in his business that he associated with failure. And he had a major problem with accumulating failures. When I say problem, I mean it was holding him back from, he was becoming paralyzed because he was not sure what was going to work and what wasn't. And as he saw the ups and downs, we went through and identified, okay, what was the reason for this success? How did you feel when you had that success? Oh, I felt great. I was excited. What was the reason for that failure? And we saw patterns there. And that enabled him to no longer take these failures personally, but to see that they were very much like his successes. There were patterns he could observe, and he could work to minimize failures. And there were patterns that resulted in more opportunities for him and future success that he could enabled him to do that. And it was what I liked was it was a nice way to confront failure without in a forward-looking way. Even though we were looking back, the focus was on the forward-looking opportunities. And it took the personal out of it.
There's a lot of takeaways in what you just shared there. There's three questions I associate with the quinking, and that is just like the traffic lights, green, yellow, and red. Keep going, start doing, and stop doing. So when I quink something, what should I continue doing? What should I stop doing? And what should I start doing? It's such a simple process, but it's so powerful. And the example of the fellow you talked about, where he was accumulating failures, and his perception of what that meant to him became a burden and a weight to hold him back, versus a lever to elevate him to another viewpoint, to another horizon. And it's a choice. It's not what happens to us that really matters, right? It's how we respond to what happens.
Right, exactly.
We aren't our past, are we? Unless we wallow in it. Now, I'm a big fan of wallowing in our past, but in the way that it's positive, and you know about that. And that is to make a list of all of the successes that you've accumulated along the way, and everything, big, small, recall them all. And the reason for that is it gives you the leverage to look at what you've come through with pride and positivity and possibilities to take on bigger and better things that you've never done before. And those that have done it, and I've done this, it's not just something I read out of a book. And I'm a huge advocate of it, because one of the things we do is we go through our successes way too lightly and way too quickly. So a way to stop that from happening is to slow down to go fast. And by slowing down, you accentuate the things that you went through, survived, and achieved, and became, even though when you're going through, it might have been like hell. You're on the other side of it. And Churchill had a famous quote that I'm hoping you'll remember. Good, you smiled. Maybe you know what it is about that. Do you remember what? Can you help me?
No.
No.
I've just read, I've read so much about Churchill but you're right. Churchill was an amazing guy.
Yeah.
He had a huge failure, and but Churchill had a great perspective on his life.
The one I was attempting to remember is, if you're going through hell, keep on going.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can stay there and burn, or you can vacate and move forward. So the Queen King and the 100 Success List are a couple of things that I find to be powerful, simple ways to take failure and turn it into your next success, and leveraging your past experience. So you know you won't do that again, or you'll do it something different. It's how I was able to build a business from where I built it, and we don't have time to go into that story. But like I say, the things we talk about here aren't just something we've read on a book. They're ideas and concepts that we've applied in our own lives, and had some failing along the way, but also have had some successes. And more failing to happen, and more successes to appreciate.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to successfully revising my background.
Yeah, it'll be brilliant. You know how many times I went through to come up with the one that I did, and I've had feedback from experts in the video field where they know on air stuff really well. One's part of our Megamind group, Bruce Himmelblatt, and another one was a fellow I met. I can't remember how I met Roy, and both had given me great feedback. So I used to do this a lot. So I have 3 monitors. I'm not going to look at that one very much because you're not up there. But I like to see the eyes of the people I'm talking to. So right now I'm looking at what makes me comfortable. So I can see your head nodding and your smile. It's beautiful. But on air, that's not very good. So what we need to do as often as possible is stare at the camera, even though you're over there on my, actually you're over there on my my studio scene, but it really doesn't look like I'm paying attention to you if I do this and talk to you, right? So I've got some great feedback from some professionals that have helped me become better utilizing technology like this. And lighting. I mean, if you could see what this, I'm not going to move my camera, but if you could see what was here, there's lights and microphones hanging from there. And without that stuff, and knowing how to use it better, I wouldn't be very successful in creating the backgrounds and the way it looks. I've had the background, it doesn't pixelate, but it has gotten become granular because the lighting was bad. But I've also had the font was too big, it was too small. I was way down here, and then I was way up here. I was off to the side. So I've learned how to kind of show up a little bit better on screen. Those are all learnable skills. As Brian Tracy says, everything is learnable. Mm-hmm. The top 10% started off as being the bottom 10%. And the only way you can get to the top 10% is if you continue to take your fails and turn them into successes. So first attempt in learning.
That was one of the, I think one of the things that helped me in life is that I had a boss who was a great scientist when I first went to work for an oil company. And he treated me as someone who was a work in progress, as you mentioned earlier, rather than judging my failures. And at first it threw me off because I figured he was going to criticize me, but then I realized he was coaching me. I actually had a boss who was a coach.
He was ahead of his time.
And he would tell me things like, I notice you're really quiet in our weekly meetings, but I know you have good ideas. Just start sharing a couple. And then you'll get the hang of it. I thought, that's a whole lot better than, hey, why don't you speak up in the meeting?
Yeah. Stop being so damn quiet.
Right,
get out there and try harder.
Right. What's the matter with you? Cat got your tongue? That's
always a good one, right?
Yeah, because that was back in the day when people used to say that.
Well, back in the day, they're still doing that. They are still doing that. The self-talk is really the impetus to success. What we say to ourselves on a regular basis is what we move towards, because our thoughts, well, T. Harv Eker has really short, good quote around this says where our thoughts go, energy flows, and our results show. So thinking is everything. Wasn't it Nightingale that said, Zig Ziglar said, stop the stinking thinking. Right? He was colorful with his language without being using profanity. He was quite the storyteller. And it goes way back in a lot of books and people, leaders, all have a very similar philosophy about thinking and thoughts and failing and success. I heard one when John Asraf is more of a modern day contemporary change leader. And apparently he was at an event somewhere and talking about fail and success. He was sitting around a table and he thought these guys were, well, they were all talking about something, and it was generally not anything good. It was all negative, the repeating the news that they'd heard or gossiping about somebody. And he stopped and he says, gentlemen, I value my subconscious mind. And what goes in is really important to me. What I'm hearing you say here is not of value to me or probably any of us, really. So if you'd like me to stay at this table, I'm going to ask you to stop talking about the negative things that you're talking about. And if you are unable to do that and don't want to do that, I'll find another table, because I value my subconscious far too much to allow garbage in. That's easier said than done. However, it's a good thing to do, don't you think?
Yes, you're asking me.
Yeah.
Who else? It's like I've been working on my nutrition and my health, and now I can barely look at a cookie without seeing something horrible in it.
Oh.
And because eating that at this point in my life is not healthy for me, but it's the same. I was watching the news the other night and I just turned it off. It was too much negativity. I couldn't. There's a lot of good things going on, but apparently the news is unaware of them.
Unaware of it. Yeah, and I've not been a fan of watching news for a very long time, and the turning point for me, even though I kind of knew about it before, was 9/11. I had watched that over and over and over, and I thought on that American station, I can't remember. I remember what the call letters are, but I'm trying to think of the constant negative news station. I turned it off because in my own, it's like, I don't remember where I heard it from. It might have been a Luteism or somebody else, but or even Maxwell Maltz. Our mind can't tell the difference between something that's real and something that's vividly imagined. And so I already have that etched in my mind. I can still see right now today. The good thing is I don't have the spark associated to it. Now, I'm not suggesting that wasn't something that we should be aware of and forget about, because no, we shouldn't forget about it. Giving an emotion attachment to something like that holds us back, like you were talking about your buddy there had the failures, and he was allowing the failing to pull him down versus building him up. They weren't stepping stones, they were weights. That's the difference, right? So since that time, and I very rarely watch news. And you know what? When I need to know something that's newsworthy, I find out somehow.
Right.
It shows up.
Right. It's actually it's all available.
Yeah, I don't have to
in a much less negative way than what the broadcast news shows.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to ask you, because we're getting close to the bottom of the hour here. What's one tip or takeaway you'd like to share with people?
I would say, I mentioned not taking failures personally, but that's talking about the big failures, especially the ones that are significant. But every day we have little failures, and sometimes they can accumulate in our brains and make us and result in our being negative or feeling negative. But if we look at our daily walk through life as being experiments, then there's no reason to take these things personally, and there's every reason to learn from them. So my tip would be, make every day a learning experience by looking at what happened in your daily experience.
And mine is to continuously collect the wins, big or small. Really recall them all and review them and relive the feelings of success and victory that you've had along the way. Because those emotions and those experiences can elevate you to another place. It can help you go into what seemingly extraordinary thing for you to do today. And it might be today, but down the road, if you work on building up your self-efficacy, that the extraordinary then becomes the ordinary, the new normal, second nature, just like me or you. So on that note, if you like this, share it with other people. If you know somebody who has a story to tell, we have spots throughout the month, but we could fill them in and get them on and broadcast their story out to help somebody. You just never know what it is you're going to say that's going to have an impact to somebody else one day. And on that note, I want to bring up one other thing before we depart for today, and that is this. I want you guys to all think about you and this wonderful word, wonderful, and spell it like this on purpose, because the you represents you, your uniqueness, and how wonderful you really are. And with that, Ron, thank you for being here. Thank you for your input, everybody that was here live. And for those of you who are watching it, let us know. Hashtag replay. Let us know where you're at. And if you know somebody that would be an interesting person to share their story, even if they may not think they are, make the introduction. Let's have a chin guy. Again, go out there and be wonderful. I'm Coach Phil and
Dave.
And Dave. Here we go.
Dave with the jackhammer.
That's only temporary. They're making things better.
Yeah, they are.